team, I hope you're all well. Today we are gonna have a quick look-see at my best books of 2024 so far. I feel like I've seen a few other creators doing this and I feel like it would be a really cool way of reflecting when it comes to doing my best books of the year, to see how much it's changed from halfway through the year. So because the beginning of the year for me, the first like 6 months of the year for me were fantastic as far as reading is concerned, and my favourite book of the year was flipping constantly, especially in the first, I would say, like 2 to 3 months. Favourite book of the year was constantly flipping. But at the last month and a half, it has really slowed down for me. I haven't had a 5-star read other than a graphic novel and 2 rereads at all. So I am a little bit nervous about how the second half of the year is going to go. We're going to see whether or not this list will change much. I don't think my top 2, maybe even my top 4 will change at all. We will see. Those are my predictions. But without further ado, let's go through them. We're going to go from 10 to 1. And I would love to know what your predictions are on maybe my number 1 book. You probably already know, but I'd love to know what your predictions are. Okay, coming in at number 10 and with a 9.50 on Corpile. If you don't know what Corpile is, it's a rating system that has been made by G from Book Roast to help people rate their books. I will leave a link to her video in the description box down below where she explains everything if you want to go and check that out. But a 9.50 on Corpile, which is pretty high. We have a manga and it is Unholy Blood Volume 1. This was sent to me by IZE Press and I absolutely loved it. They've sent me Volume 2 as well, and Volumes 3 and 4 come out later on this year. So I'm really loving this so far. It is following our main character, Hyan, who is a pure blood vampire, but she just wants a normal life, and it all kind of goes to shit in this volume. And I'm really excited about continuing on with this series. It's such a good book. The illustrations are beautiful, the colouring is stunning, and I would recommend it 100%. It was so good. So a 9.50 for my 10th spot. Coming in 9th spot with the same rating, 9.50, this was a shock to me. This will definitely be on my most surprising of the year because I wasn't anticipating loving this as much as I have done. And it is Bonesmith by Nikki Palpretto. I freaking loved this. It was so good. This came in the Feraloot box back in August last year, I think, the YA box. I don't get the YA box anymore, and because it came in the YA box and I don't tend to read YA fantasy anymore, I have been putting this off. Now, I thought this had been on my shelves much longer. I ended up picking this up on a whim during a box readathon with my patrons, which is a readathon that I do like a couple of times a year where we spend a week focusing on subscription box books, because I'm friggin' terrible with my subscription box books, and I picked this up on a whim. This is pitched as Gideon the Ninth meets the White Walkers in this dark young adult fantasy about a disgraced ghost fighting warrior who must journey into a haunted wasteland to rescue a kidnapped prince. It was so good, so good, and I loved Ren. I thought she was fantastic. I loved the world building in this. I loved the character development. I just loved everything about it. It was so good. Now, in the moment I was a little bit mad at myself for sleeping on this one, but now on reflection I'm not at all, because I've read it at the perfect time. Ghostsmith, the sequel in this duology, comes out in August, so I'm so excited to get to that one. I have ordered the matching Feraloot edition because this is freaking stunning. I've ordered the matching Feraloot edition, so it might be a while before I get my hands on my copy, but I'm so excited to read this one and I absolutely love this. I just did not see this coming at all. It's come completely out of left field, and it's had me questioning ever since whether or not I'm back in my YA fantasy era. I don't think I am. I think I'm in my new adult era of reading books that are pitched as YA when they're not. This is new adult. In case you are also not in your YA era and you're avoiding books because they're pitched as YA, this is new adult. It should be pitched as new adult. There's no way this is YA. I loved it. 5 stars, obviously. all of these books are. Next, with a 9.57, we have a couple 9.57s coming up, and I've put them in the order that I've enjoyed them. We do have Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score, which is book 2 in the Knock 'em Out series. I loved this. It was so good. In this one, we do follow Nash and also Lena. So Nash is Knox's brother from the first book, and the story literally continues from the first book. I think what I love about this series so much is that I forget, with it being so fluffy on the outside, I forget just how deep and dark this story can get. There is a darker undertone to it with the plot in the background, and I think I forget about that, and I just love the way that it weaves itself in, and it's so good. These characters really get in your head, and I just love this a lot. I love this whole series. It all got 5 stars, but yeah, really enjoyed this one. I think this one was probably my favorite because Lena and Nash are actually, they're friends, but they kind of don't get on too well. So they've known each other a long time. Lena is Knox's best friend, but they become neighbours and they don't really get on. There's a bit of bickering going on, but there is also very good PTSD and anxiety rep in here as well, in case that was a thing that you might be interested in. 9.57, so good. Also with a 9.57 is an author that never ever lets me down. She's the only author on my shelves that has straight 5 stars with all of her books. Abby Jimenez never lets me down. I haven't read Just for the Summer yet. There is still time. There is no way that that book is not getting 5 stars. Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This was incredible. Absolutely loved it, and I had such a good time. This is following Brianna and Jacob. We met Brianna in the first book in this series, Part of Your World, and she's really struggling at the moment. She's going through a divorce. Her brother needs a kidney transplant, and she's it looks like she's going to get this promotion at work, but then Dr. Jacob Maddox comes in, and it looks like he might end up getting the promotion as well. So that all goes to shit. On his first day, him and Brianna end up having a bit of a run-in with her brother because he ends up being rushed into hospital, and from that point on she doesn't really get on with him. He then starts sending her letters apologising for what happened, and it's adorable, and I loved it. I love these two characters. I love Jacob. He's got, again, anxiety, quite high functioning anxiety, and I just loved the way these two work together. It was so good. Jacob ends up giving a kidney for her brother anonymously, but she ends up figuring it out. That is all in the synopsis. By the way, haven't spoiled anything. So good. She never lets me down, ever. Also with a 9.57, we do have Powerless by Elsie Silver. I still think Heartless is my favourite, but this is definitely a close second. I loved this one. In this one, we're following Sloane and Jasper. Sloane is the cousin of the Eaton family. Jasper is almost like an adopted brother, not officially, but almost like an adopted brother. He grew up with the Eaton family, and he considers them his own family. So, because his parents were trash, and he spent the majority of his time on Chestnut Springs on the farm, growing up with the Eaton family. So he considers himself a bit of an adopted brother, but he's not related. Just FYI, he is not related. Sloane and Jasper have been friends since kids, when they first met, when Sloane went to visit the farm for the first time. She met Jasper that day, and they've been friends ever since. In the first instance of this book, we are following Sloane on her wedding day, and she decides to do a runner because the guy that she's going to marry is an absolute douchebag, and she finds out that he's cheating on her. So she does a runner, and lo and behold, who is there to save her but Jasper? He helps her escape. He's got some shit going on with one of the brothers from the Eatons, so one of Sloane's cousins, and like his best friend within the family, and they are helping each other out, escape each other's actual reality, and it's best friends to lovers, and I fucking loved this. Like, I've got chills thinking about it. I fucking love this. It was so good. Jasper is an absolute sweetheart, such a sweetheart, proper golden retriever energy, and I loved him. And then the last book that I have with a 9.57 is Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver. I loved this. This was my favourite book of the year for approximately Maybe 4 days. But I loved it. It was so good. This one is 2 serial killers who end up in an unlikely friendship. Sloane, again, and Rowan. Butcher and Blackbird. She's Blackbird, he's Butcher. What happens is they end up meeting by accident on a mark one day. They're both serial killers. They end up meeting by accident on a mark one day, and they end up coming up with this agreement that once a year they'll get together, one of them will pick a mark, and they'll see who can get to the mark the quickest. Cheeky little competition to see who can kill the person first. As you do, just a casual thing. Over the years though, a relationship builds, and it's just so good. The banter in here was off the mark. The spice in here was off the mark. Maybe a little bit gross for some people in some instances. I had a good time. The audiobook, top notch. Loved this. It was so fucking good, and I couldn't put it down. I think I binged this in maybe 1 or 2 sittings. It was so good. Okay, coming in 4th place, the book that very quickly knocked Butcher and Blackbird off the top spot was A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. This got a 9.71 rating on CawPile. This is the Fairy Loot edition. Stunning. I got an arc of this, so I got to read it very early on, and I don't physically read fantasy because I get stuck with my ADHD. I get stuck on the fantastical words and stuff, so I don't physically read fantasy. I need an audiobook to get me through, otherwise it will take me forever to get through. This, however, I got an arc of this earlier on in the year, or was it late last year, and at some point I just decided, before this came out, I just decided, you know what, I'm going to give this a bash, see if I can get through it, because it is Viking, Nordic-esque inspired. So I don't think the words will be too complicated, and anything that was, I just googled. So I managed to get through the book, and I'm not joking, I couldn't put it down. It was so good. It only took me a couple of days, which is incredible for me physically reading fantasy. So we're following Freya, who is bound in an unwanted marriage, and she spends her days gutting fish and dreaming of putting an axe in her boorish husband's back, while also dreaming of wanting to become a warrior. Now she ends up finding herself in a situation where this is possible one day, and her husband betrays her to the Regent's Jarl, and she finds herself in a fight to the death with a man called Bjorn. She ends up revealing something during this fight, and then the Jarl ends up wanting to take her with him, and he wants her to work for him. So she ends up finding herself in this situation, and it just gets better and better. Fantasy romance. Bjorn, incredible. I'm just obsessed. This is so good. She makes some dumb decisions, but she's just been a wife previously, and she's just learning how to become a warrior, so you know, I let it slide. But she's a very strong woman, and I really enjoyed her character, and I loved Bjorn. Love me some Norse mythology, honestly. I was obsessed with this. Okay, coming in 3rd place, we have a 9.79, and this is an indie published author, and I'm obsessed with this book. We've got Lights Out by Kayla James. If you are in your F1 era and you have not read this yet, pick it up. Pick it up. I've read a handful of F1 romances over the years, and this is by far, way and beyond, better than any of them I have read. I've DNF'd a handful of romances. I've read a couple of Cat Ransom's ones, Fast and Hard, Fast and Wet. I've read Throttled by Lauren Asher. I haven't continued with that series. I do believe it gets better, and I do want to continue with it. I DNF'd Chasing Daisies by Paige Toon. Didn't like that one. And there's a couple of others that I've read over the years as well. And this, by far, the best out of them all. I loved this one. We're following Blake and Ryder, and this one is a little bit different in a sense that we have a woman on the track, a woman F1 driver on the track, and I'm obsessed with that. I love that because I would love to see women F1 drivers. Would love to see that. Ryder is heavily inspired by Charles Leclerc, so if he is your driver, and basically we're in a situation where there is a new F1 team coming in. The Team principal of this team makes a really big decision. Ryder has been out of the race for the last year to year and a half due to an injury in the previous season. So he is just about coming back in. They have him on the team, and then they bring Blake in, who is a very, very new very new driver in general, but she is brand new to F1. So they're taking a huge risk here. This is a huge risk for any team to take, but a huge risk for a new team to take. So on the first day that these two actually meet, Ryder has no fucking clue that Blake is a woman until she gets out of her car, and he's already done a couple laps with her around the track. He's really impressed by her driving, but he's no clue that she's a woman until she gets out of the car. And these two end up building up this friendship. They end up actually living together in the UK at Ryder's place because it's easier for them to work together and work together as a team, things like that, and they end up building up this relationship, and it's just stunning. I loved this. You can tell Kayla's an F1 fan. I know for some people this won't be perfect, but I just loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I loved the relationship between Ryder and Blake. Ryder's clearly struggling with a little bit of anxiety and PTSD over his accident, and Blake helps him through it, and I just thought it was beautiful, and I loved it so much. I cannot tell you how much I love this book. Please go and pick it up. If you're in your F1 era, pick this up. If you're thinking about getting in your F1 era, pick this up. If you love a sports romance, pick this up. If you just love a romance, pick it up. Everyone just pick it up. It's so good, and I loved it. Alright, we're in the home stretch. We're down to our last two books, and I have to talk about these together because they're part of the same series. Can anyone guess what it is? So with book number 2, we got a 9.86, and it's Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh. And then with book number 1, listen, this has never happened to me in the 3 or 4 years I've used Corpile, but this got straight 10s across the board. There was nothing wrong with this book, so it got a 10 on Corpile. Binding 13. I love this series. I think about this at least once a day since I read it. At least once a day. I went into this book wanting to know what the fuck TikTok was talking about, why any romance book has any business being over 800 pages, and it's the only reason I wanted to pick it up. I knew nothing going in. I didn't have any expectations of this series. I assumed that I would get partway through this and go, this is fucking ridiculous. Why is it so long? And I'd end up DNFing it. That's what I anticipated. So I only bought the first one. Lo and behold, I fell in love. I bought this one because I ended up going straight into it after finishing Binding 13, and then I've gone ahead and bought the rest. I don't know if you can see, but I also have the American really fancy editions as well, special editions, which I get every single time they come out. Fucking love this. This is following Shannon and Johnny. It's set in Ireland. Shannon like the river. Oh, it makes me so happy. Shannon and Johnny have crawled into my soul. I'm not joking. They live there now, and I think they will be there forever. And I have a very strange feeling that I'm going to think about them for a very, very, very long time. I love them. They are younger, or they're on the younger end. If I remember correctly, Shannon is 15 at the beginning of this book. By the end, she's 16 at this book. I think it's this book, unless she turns 16 in this one. Johnny is 17, and again, he's 18 by the end of this book. And basically, Shannon goes to this public school, but she's being horrifically bullied, like abused, violently, physically, horrifically bullied. She then comes home to an incredibly busy house in which she's got like 4 or 5 siblings. They're all brothers, a mum and dad. Her mum is the only one working in the house. Her dad is a cock, and her oldest brother has left the house previously, and she is best friends with her then next oldest brother, which is Joey. And then she's got a couple of younger brothers as well. So I think there's like 5 of them in total. So she's got this horrendous home life, horrendous school life, and her mum gets to a point where she's like, right, I'm pulling you out of this school, I'm going to pick up some extra shifts and we're going to send you to that really nice fancy private school that's a little bit further away that I know you've got a couple of girlfriends at. So she does have a couple of girlfriends, and she ends up going to this nice private school. Day one, she ends up finding herself leaving her phone in the toilets one day in another block, and she skirts across the fields to come back to her class after she's picked her phone up. She ends up getting hit in the head by a football from Johnny. Rugby ball from Johnny. Pure accident, but it knocks her out. And when she comes back around, she panics for a hot minute that he's done it on purpose, and then suddenly realises that he hasn't. He's freaking out. Her mum turns up. She's freaking out. She thinks she's being bullied by Johnny already, and that's not the case. Lo and behold, a friendship builds. This is the slowest slow burn you're ever going to get. The slowest slow burn. A friendship builds and everything starts to come out. Things get very, very bad in the Shannon Lynch household. And these books broke me, absolutely broke me. I was sobbing for about 20 minutes for the end of this book, for about 20 minutes after the end, and then I had to pick this up because I needed to know what was going on. I needed to make sure everyone was safe and everyone was okay, and then I binged my way through this book. So I think it was it might have taken me like a week to get through this and then a couple of days to get through this one, and I'm obsessed. I just love it. I absolutely love it. It won't be for everybody, but I think it's incredible. I think it's very well written. I think that the characters are so incredibly fleshed out. Like, I'm already invested in the rest of the characters' stories, and I've not even started them yet. And I just think it's phenomenal. I think Chloe's done an incredible job, and I just love it. And I desperately want to go back, reread them and tab these up. But I think what I'm going to do first, I think maybe I'll try and reread these first at some point, and then carry on with Saving Six, which is Joey's book from that point on. But I just loved these, and no book has ever gotten 10 across the boards from me, ever. So this book clearly, I mean, I have never rated, I don't think, the likes of, for just an example of a book that is definitely one of my all-time favourite books, I've never rated The Martian on Core Pile, I don't think. But again, that's another faultless book for me. But never has a book gotten 10 across the board on Core Pile for me. So definitely one of my favourite books of all time, and this will live with me forever and ever and ever, amen, I think. So that is my top 10. There is quite a mix of things there, but very much so heavy on the romance, that's for damn sure. I do have a manga down at the bottom. We've got a couple fantasy books, and then a lot of romance. There isn't a single thriller or horror on here, so nothing has blown me away yet with thrillers or horrors. I do know there's quite a few coming out later on in the year, so I know, like, I'm so excited for Clown in a Cornfield 3. I'm really excited for that one, so I anticipate that being very good. But here's hoping that maybe I get like a horror or a thriller on here, or a couple at that. I'm not sure what else I have planned for the rest of the year as far as reading is concerned. I would like to get through as many of my owned books as I possibly can, but obviously there are constantly new books coming out all the time that I am excited about. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But those are my current top 10 books of 2024. This could all change. It could change later on today before I even got this video out. We'll have to see. But yeah, this can change at any point. So obviously by the time you're seeing this video on Sunday, I'm filming it on Friday. I mean, there's not much chance of it changing, but I am reading a very well-established author with myself right now. So maybe, who knows? I'm also having a shit time with reading. Well, not shit time, but not a great time with reading. So it's been a month and a half, 2 months since I had a 5-star read. So maybe not. We'll have to see. But yeah, bear in mind that this can change at any point. But right now, as of right this second, that is my current top 10 reads of 2024. Did you predict any of them? Did you get them right? Do we have anything in common? Let me know in the comments down below. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and I will see you in whatever comes next. Bye for now.